We had Craig, and now I've lost Craig.
Greg's here.
Oh,
I'm
there he
here.
is. Okay. Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, it's 6:31. Do you want to give it a minute, or do you want
Let's give it,
to?
yeah, let's just give it a minute or so. We have,
Feel free to give your intro.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. If this is the first time you're joining us, or maybe the first time in a long time, you'll notice that you're currently muted. And everybody during the meeting is going to stay muted except for our co-chairs, Chuck and Craig, and our presenters as we move through the agenda. You can participate by going to the React icon on your device and pressing the raise hand button. It's not the wave or the thumbs up, those will disappear. Only press the raise hand button once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in from the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute whenever called on. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you may need to go to the participant section or the more section where you might find the raise hand feature there. And finally, we remind you that the chat is only available for technical support to help with Zoom software. It is not to ask questions or make comments. So the presenters or co-chairs, they will never see those chats. We encourage you not to raise your actual hand or wave at the screen to get our attention. So if you're having any problems, you can chat me for support. Otherwise, I'll hand it back over to Chuck and Craig, and they can get the meeting started.
well, okay.
All right.
Why don't we
Chuck,
start?
are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
We can't hear you.
I can
you
hear
me?
him. I can
Can you
hear
hear
him.
me? Is that better?
I can hear both of you.
Let me see if I need to.
Others here, Chuck?
Craig, can you hear me?
I can't hear him.
Yeah, I can hear both of you. So
Really? You can't hear me?
I
hear you. I hear Craig.
Okay. No, I hear both of you. I don't know what. Craig, can you hear me? Oh, weird. That's even weirder. More weird. Somebody who knows grammar can correct me on that.
Yeah.
Craig, Chuck, say something. Give us.
I'm here. Can anybody hear? Can you hear? You can hear me?
And maybe others can give a thumbs up if they could hear Chuck.
Yeah, it's just you, Craig.
I'm going to log out and come back in.
I think
That's really strange.
Oh wait, Paul,
Okay.
you cannot hear Chuck, but you can hear Craig and me. Interesting. Okay. Well, this is a new one. All right. Why don't I hold down the fort for 1 second while both of you leave and come back, and let's see if that corrects anything. I truly have no idea what could be causing this.
Sure, let's try. Let's try it again.
Because yeah, we have a few people who both say they can't hear Chuck. Craig, why don't you leave and come back too, just in case. And so everybody just hold tight for half a second while our co-chairs hopefully get everything sorted out and we get that squared away. So, okay. Let's actually make sure, Officer Larkin, are you able to unmute and is
Yes.
Okay, good. Everybody can hear him, right?
Yeah, and Sergeant
Okay.
Pack here as well.
You all are both on the same device?
No, he's separate.
Okay, all right. Then I'm gonna find him.
He's Pat Connors.
Sergeant Connors, are you able to unmute? Let's.
Hi, how are you?
Great. Yeah, I can hear you. Can I get some thumbs up that y'all can hear? Okay, great. All right, Craig, go ahead.
I'm Bill. Can everyone hear me?
All right, good sound check. Just need Chuck to rejoin. Although I'm gonna put your hand down because we're not in questions at this point. You're welcome, Craig, if you want to get started, and we'll just try to sort out Chuck if when he gets back.
Sure. I was gonna just give it 1 second for Chuck to come back.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience. As Will said, this is a new one. I don't remember this in our now 5 years of Zoom meetings.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Here's Chuck. Chuck, you can unmute whenever you're ready. How about those Knicks, right?
Yeah. How's the, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Everybody
Okay.
else, I see all thumbs up. Okay, great.
So we're here. Okay. So now
Wonderful.
why don't we, let's start. This is the May meeting of the Transportation Committee of Community Board 8. Welcome, everyone. And I'm Chuck Warren, co-chair of the committee, and Craig Lader, my fellow co-chair. First on our agenda is a presentation by the New York Police Department Traffic Enforcement on their actions in our district. And I know that we have some people here from traffic enforcement. We appreciate them coming. And so why don't we turn it over and you can make whatever presentation they would like to, and we can have some questions and hopefully get some answers. So take it away, Hobbs.
Hey, so I'm Sergeant Connors. I've been at the 19th for just about a year. I worked in the Bronx before that. I've been the traffic sergeant for just about 7 weeks. So, just getting started with initiatives and catching up on stuff. But, I have some numbers for you guys that we can go over. I can answer any questions. I could talk about the initiatives in the past few weeks that we've done. It's mostly going to be like two-wheel stuff, mopeds, bicycles. That's a lot of the pedestrian involved accidents involve bicycles, mopeds, bike lanes, things of that nature. But there's other issues too in the 19th. It's a very large command, bigger than I'm probably used to from my old precinct, and just look forward to talking to you guys. Whatever you need, let me know.
Sergeant, let me ask you a question just first. How large is your jurisdiction? Where, your enforcement jurisdiction, from what streets is it? If you can tell us.
It's 59th to 96th from the
Right.
FDR to Central Park.
Okay, so that covers our whole community board district, basically.
Yes.
And how many people do you have then that cover that beat?
So every tour they do summons enforcement. Do you mean just a traffic team?
Yeah, the traffic enforcement stuff, yes.
So it'd be five officers.
So
and myself.
there's total of 5 officers and you.
That's correct.
And they have to cover the whole thing.
But we do enforcement midnights, day tours, and 4 to 12. So, but yes, 5 total, and me.
Right. Okay. And so that enforcement, you talked about doing a lot of enforcement on bicycles, mopeds, and things like that. Is there what kind of enforcement is there for, people parking in zones that they shouldn't park in and things like that? How much of that do you think you do?
So I'll give you guys my email before the meeting's over. If you want to take it now, that's fine. Let me know. I'll give it to you right now. So
Sure, why not?
okay. So it's going to be Patrick, Patrick,
Right?
.Connors, Connors 2 at nypd.org, and I'll repeat it.
Okay.
So it's Patrick.Connors
.Connors 2
at
at
nypd.org.
nypd.org. Yeah.
So we take emails, we take phone calls at the desk, we take 311 complaints. People call 911 about parking things if they have like an emergency. We any way you guys want to get through to us, we will take that call. Like you could call the 19th precinct. I think that number off the top of my head, I'm sure you guys in the community board probably know better than me, but that's my email, and we try to respond as quickly as we can. But like in terms of parking zone stuff, what I'm dealing with right now primarily is parking garages. So we have like, let's say it's a high volume parking garage and there's overflow onto the sidewalk or on the street. We'll try to go and enforce that. We're trying to figure out how to deal with that, how to best deal with that right now. And that's our number one problem. Like parking garages, there's probably like 100 of them in the 19th precinct. So that's our number one thing right now. But we would give them A summonses, tow them away. That's how we deal with the parking stuff.
Gotcha. And so what are you talked about your initiatives, and you talk about what the initiatives that you're going to pursue, let's say over the next month or so?
Sure. Do you want to know about the ones we did already since I've been
Yes.
here? You want to know? Okay.
Yes.
So on April 10th, we did a 2-wheel. So that's mopeds, but actually it was basically just bicycles, e-bikes, because a lot of these e-bikes can go like 25 miles an hour, and they'll be in the bike lane with the bicycles. That's, to me, it's too fast for the bike lane, but they're pretty much legal to be in there as long as they have pedals. They can be in the bike lane. So we did a day of enforcement. I think we got 37 summonses out of that. No seizures, no arrests, but 37 summonses. We're doing a criminal court summons operation right now. That's every single day. That's been going on for like a week. And
But what is that? What is that? Yeah.
So basically, yeah, we're giving criminal court summonses to e-bikes in the hopes that like you don't really need a license to operate a bicycle. So these individuals, were IDing them through our systems and getting them to go to criminal court for basically not motor vehicle infractions, but like traffic infractions, moving violations. So it kind of makes it a little easier to track them down, see if they have warrants, see if they have criminal records, things of that nature. So we have a two-wheel operation in the past week from, I think, April 28th to May 4th. We did a failure to yield because, again, there's a lot of bike lanes, a lot of intersections, and we wanted to enforce failure to yield to pedestrian, failure to yield to right-of-way. And I think we pulled in about 14 summonses from that. That's just from our guys and patrol. Going forward, we're going to do speeding initiatives. The one big problem I have with that is a lot of the speeding issues are on the FDR, and it's like super dangerous to do car stops on there for like a regular patrol cop. So it would kind of have to be a joint thing with highway or a joint thing with maybe another precinct, because you're basically pulling out to try to stop someone on the FDR. I don't know if you know, I'm sure you're aware, but in order to do like a car stop, a legal car stop on the FDR, you'd have to pull them over somewhere. There's one or two places I know where you can stop them on the FDR, and I've been driving on the FDR since I'm like 16, and you're basically stopping them in the Bronx. You're basically taking them over one of these bridges into the Bronx or onto the Harlem River Drive. It goes into another precinct. It would get a little complicated, but the FDR is, in my opinion, the most dangerous part of the 19th. So that's going to be the next thing we're doing is the speed. That's going to be probably next week or the week after. We're going to focus on speeders, maybe on Park Avenue or Fifth Avenue. I think that's where I would get the worst speeders. Maybe First Avenue. First Avenue is another focus of ours. And then after that, speed initiative, I'll probably go right back to two-wheel after that and hit the mopeds and the bicycles again. That'll be in 2 to 3 weeks.
Now, I know there's a jurisdictional situation where for the, not the moving violations, but for the parking violations, that's a whole other unit that does that. Those are the people who monitor the parking meters and things like that. And there's a whole bunch of those people. But they do not handle any moving violations, correct?
That's correct.
Would it help you to have their jurisdiction expanded somewhat so that they could, because they're sort of, roaming around on foot all over our area?
Would it help us to have their jurisdiction extended to what exactly?
Well, in other words, to extend it to people for parking. I guess they can do, if they see somebody, can they give a ticket to somebody who's parking in a place they're not supposed to park? They can, right? Even though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they would be able to issue violations to the people that are blocking the sidewalk, like the parking garage thing, like I was talking about earlier, or they can address any condition. They're just going to go for, and I'm not speaking off experience. I don't work for the traffic agency,
Right.
But I think they're going to kind of go for the low hanging fruit, the fire hydrants, the bus stops, the handicap cutouts in the sidewalk, and fire lanes, things of that nature. That's what they're going to hit the most, because they're just walking around on foot. They don't have access to everything like we do. They don't have cars, basically, unless
Right.
I think the buses have cars.
Right. But let's say, could they be expanded to bicycles on the sidewalks and things like that?
Moving bicycles or bicycles that are
Yeah.
No, I don't think that, because they're not equipped to do a car stop. They don't have any kind of like handcuffs or any kind of defense mechanism. They just like walk around and they have a little scanner and they like go boop on the car and it prints out a summons. There's no way they're going to deal with like bicycles and stuff like that.
Okay, so Craig, I don't know before we turn over to the public, did you want to say anything?
A few questions. Thank you. And thank you, Sergeant, for joining us tonight.
Absolutely.
Can you talk at all about enforcement in relation to double parking or the issue of especially warehousing, where trucks will take a lane and unload all their goods and all the related.
Absolutely. Like I see it on Third Avenue. Second Avenue is probably the worst. I see it on First Ave. First Ave is like our kind of like our borough corridor that they want us hitting the most. But to me, Second Ave, Third Ave is where the double parking is just rampant. And like, I actually worked for a moving company for like 2 years, and they did go into Manhattan, and it's tough to find legal parking, but they also can't just leave it in the middle of the street. Especially, my pet peeve is when there's a double park truck and then another double park truck across the street or even close, and then it's just so unsafe. And then you get people crossing the street in between those trucks. It's just recipe for disaster. I wish there could be like a zero tolerance like thing where like the traffic agents would just go by and scan that truck, and that truck gets double parker. But a lot of these companies, built into their budget, built into their yearly like operating expenses is parking tickets. And like, as much we want to hit those trucks make the Upper East like extremely unsafe. But right now, the only way we get those calls is 311 and through patrol. And like, I'll give you guys my email again, but if you see anything egregious, like I know over the summer when I was on patrol, there was like some kind of some kind of religious truck or trucks that were double parked and playing music and stuff, and we had to address that and kind of kick them out of there. That type of thing would go through 301. That's how we would address that and just try to give them something that doesn't get them out of there.
All right, got it. And then just in relation to speeding initiatives, I know that you mentioned Park, Fifth, and First as well, but particularly interested in York and East End Avenues, where oftentimes see speeding vehicles, and because many hours of the day it's like Park Avenue where you have green cycles and red cycles. I think it sort of promotes more of that speeding. I don't know if you've seen anything there.
Yes, I agree. I think yes. So you're saying like on Madison Avenue when there's not a lot of cars and you catch all the green lights and you could just fly uptown. Is that what you're talking about? That sort of thing.
And that you have that, but obviously if you go fast enough, you're going to hit a red light eventually.
Yes.
But where you have all greens,
Yes.
you have the opposite problem. So I don't know if you see any correlation there.
So I will have my guys hit those blocks too. So you said First Ave and East End Ave. You're the speeding too.
York and East End sometimes you'll see.
York and East End Ave. Sorry, I'm just gonna write this down real quick. That's definitely worth. I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up to these guys.
Especially the northern portions of it. York gets, as you know, congested
Yes.
many times a day south of, say, 79th Street, but north of 79th, where it's relatively free flowing, that's where sometimes you have speeding. The other question I had is, have you noticed any decline in terms of people that are parking in bus lanes in particular or bus stops since the automated camera enforcement went into effect along certain corridors?
The automated cameras in terms of
Bus.
The bus lane enforcement or the ones that are even on board buses. Have you noticed there have been any improvements in terms of blocking of bus stops or illegal parking in bus lanes?
you're talking about cameras on the actual bus.
Right. It's on the actual bus. In some cases, they're overhead cameras that are installed on some of the light fixtures or stanchions.
So some of those cameras might be used for that if very special circumstances existed, but those cameras are more for, how do I say, like a maybe like a fleeing suspect or something, but they could be used, like, let's say we have a complainant that comes into the precinct and they say, this person is parked in this bus stop, they're right there, let me show you, and the person at the desk can pull up the camera and try to look at that if we have cameras there. So I haven't noticed a decline or any kind of change since those cameras have, but I've been working in Manhattan for like 11, 12 months. So I'm not sure about like the trends with parking in the bus stop, but I will definitely look into it.
All right. Thank you for that.
Okay.
No problem.
Let's take first from the public some questions, and then we'll go to the board. I see first person I see Mary Bacris. Can we unmute Mary?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, fine. I just want to say I would like to address this to Sergeant Connors. I have clocked e-bikes in front of my apartment building on 2nd Avenue between 80th and 87th, going much faster than 25 miles an hour. The cars are going 25 miles an hour, but a lot of these deliveristas jack up their batteries and do 30, 40, etc. And they stop at the bike light on 86th and 2nd, but they blow right by on 87th Street and 88th Street. So I don't know what we're going to do, but people are trying to cross the street and they can't cross the street because these guys are just blowing through the lights at a high rate of speed.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the bike lanes are more dangerous than the car lanes. I'm not even trying to be facetious or funny, but like after this, probably next speeding operation we do, I'm probably going to hit the two wheels again. Last time I had my guys out there, we had 2 people on 2nd Ave and 2 on 3rd, I want to say. And we got 37 of them. I think it's a pretty decent number, but in terms of running red lights, there's even people on city bikes that do it. And
Absolutely, all
I
the
would like to
time.
grip. Yeah. So, like, I agree with you. They go 35, 40 miles an hour. We're doing some outreach with the schools and with Lenox Hill House. It's a senior center. And because a lot of the pedestrians we get hit, are minors, unfortunately, and people that are, in their 80s or 90s. So we're definitely hitting the bikes as they go, but I also want to have people like basically looking both ways, just like I tell my kids. Like, you got to look when you cross the street for the cars, and then you have to look again for the bikes because, like you said, they come out of nowhere and they're going really fast. And we are hitting the bikes with summonses, but I also want people to be like very much have their head on a swivel and just be precautionary and be proactive and looking because it can, and if you get hit with those bikes, you
It used
can
to be a city for pedestrians. It isn't any longer with the bike situation.
I agree.
Less
agree.
common. Yeah.
Next, I see Leah. Leah, if you can identify yourself for the record. We know you.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes. Hi, it's Leah Hanlon. Since Mary just asked the e-bike question, I'm going to default to my second question here, which is actually about how cars are supposed to drive in the bus lanes. I'm uncertain if this is a question for you, Sergeant, or for the DOT for Colleen, but let's take as an example 3rd Avenue at 80th Street. Suppose you're going up 3rd Avenue and you want to turn right onto 80th Street. The very first lane on the right, next to the curb, is the bus stop, and there's a hydrant there at the end. The next lane is a pink bus lane, and the 3rd lane is a traffic lane. So if I'm going north on 3rd Avenue and I want to turn onto 80th Street, which of those 3 lanes am I supposed to turn from? Because I see people making turns from all of those lanes. I see buses trying to go straight on the bus lane and a car trying to make a right in front of the bus from that 3rd lane. People have to cut over to try to get to in front of the hydrant. And I don't really blame people for this behavior because I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. There's no signs. It's not clear. So this happens in different permutations of that problem. Wherever there's a bus lane, people don't know if they're supposed to go in the bus lane to make a right turn. Can you explain what you want us to be doing?
So I couldn't agree with you more. I think the lane designation, bike lanes, bus lanes, the boulevards that went up, 10, 15 years ago to like break up the bike lane and the lanes of traffic. I think it just inherently makes people confused. And I like I said, I agree with you. If there's no bus, there's a couple of different, you asked a couple of different questions. If there's no bus in the bus lane, as a motorist, I would make the right turn from the rightmost lane. That's the safest thing. If there's a bus in the bus lane and it's dropping off people and picking up people, and you have to make that right and you have the right of way, I'm pretty sure that you can like slowly and safely, if you have the right of way, after you check for pedestrians, make that right. I could be wrong. If there's someone on the DOT on the call, I don't think you get into the bus lane when there's a bus in it at all. But my instinct would be when the bus lane is clear, you want to make a right turn from the farthest lane to the right.
Hey, it's Colleen from DOT. So if you're
Colleen.
making that right turn, you would have to make it from what he just mentioned, from the most right turn lane adjacent to the bus lane. But you can inch up again and get into that bus lane to make that turn as well, like at the corner of the intersection. You can do that.
Sorry,
But you know that people do you should have signs or a public information campaign or something, because no, I don't know what to do. And most people don't really know what to do, so that people are making, like, people make right turns from that third lane in front of the bus and in front of people trying to make it from the right against the curb.
What you're
hydrant lane.
describing is illegal. They're not supposed to do that, and that should be
But
enforced.
Colleen, nobody knows. That's the problem.
How is it that
So-
nobody knows?
So people
Nobody knows.
know.
I don't know.
It's the same as
Good.
it's the same-
Colleen,
making a right
this is-
turn from the middle lane is always illegal, even if there's no bus lane there. In defense of the DOT, like if you make a right lane from the middle lane or any lane that's not the rightmost lane, that's an improper turn. And just like she just
Right,
mentioned,
but the bus lane says bus lane only, so
No,
people are
but
trying
also
to honor that.
The bus lane, and there are signs that say this, say bus lanes and right turns only. If you are making a right turn within the block, you are able to enter the bus lane within the block in which you are making a right turn, to make that right turn. If you enter that bus lane and then continue straight, then you are susceptible to getting a ticket, whether it be especially if there are the overhead cameras that are on that bus route. But the bus lane is also meant to be a right turn lane.
Ray, this is
There
Raphael.
are no signs that say that, Craig, because
Right.
I make these turns with my heart in my mouth, and I look for signs to tell me what to do, and there are none.
It's not at every
Right,
intersection, but there are places where those signs are up.
Will, can you
And
listen?
not in the
Yeah,
area
Raphael-
around 79th
Raphael
Street and
wanted to
80th Street.
Raphael, please.
Go ahead.
This is Raphael from DOT as well. Leah has a very justifiable concern. What we should do, we should look at that area that she has described. So this is something that, Will, if you can shoot it up to us, we can take a look at it.
Well, listen, I've noticed that sometimes, and I think it's not as consistent as it should be, that the bus lane, as you get to the corner where we want to make a right turn, is becomes dotted. And that sort of indicates, yes, you can go over there. But I think it probably should be dotted a little, if you're going to make a right turn, dotted a little bit longer, not just at the very piece at the corner, but maybe about halfway up there. You ought to take a look at that when you're looking at how those lanes are laid out there, the bus lanes.
Well, can you share this, allow me to share the screen? I'm just going to pull up this particular intersection so we could see it, because it is, and Leah's right, it is definitely a challenge, and it's not necessarily very clear if you're not educated on what the rules are.
Yeah, go
But
for it. Go for it.
Sure. So give me 1 second.
He's always the fastest gun in the east here to get us the pictures.
Here's 3rd Avenue.
Well-
This light is 79th Street. Here's the bus stop. Here's 80th Street. And you could
Yeah.
see, here's the dotted line that Chuck is referring to.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably should go all the way down, actually, but
And
Yeah.
and if you look at if yeah, so this sign says buses only over here if you go further up, but I know that there are other locations in which it says right turn only. Here, this is at 82nd Street, and you can see again the dotted lines.
I would submit that people don't know what that means. And it's the point of this is not to say, gotcha, you've made an illegal turn. It's to keep people from crashing into each other.
maybe
And they
DOT
should
can
know
look at,
what they're supposed to do without having to search online for the New York State traffic laws or something to find out what that hyphenated line in the middle of the block means. People just don't know what they're supposed to do.
well, Raphael, maybe you can go back and say, can take a look at some of these streets and see if there's some better way to map it out for vehicles that want to make right turns. Okay, thank you, Leah. Okay, Next is Evelyn David, I see, has raised her hand from the public. Go ahead, Evelyn.
Hi, you know what? You talked about the dotted line. That's the one thing that this Leah, making a right turn from middle lane is not using common sense. Okay, that makes no sense. You get tickets all the time for doing that in other places. So that's number one. And the dotted line, I just figured a long time ago, that's meant we were allowed to go in there into the bus lane with no bus in sight, or even you let the bus go by and then you get over to that lane. There's plenty of room. Nope, you're not going to crash into anybody because there's nobody in the bus lane except for the bus. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. The dotted line is the hint, okay? And maybe sign saying you can get into the bus lane with the dotted line or something like that. I mean, if people are completely confused, which I don't, at this point, I think most people have kind of figured it out, sort of. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. But thank you very much for the discussion. Okay, bye-bye.
If I could just once again share my screen just to show what I was talking about. So this is 83rd and 1st, and you can see the bus lane sign says buses only and right turns.
That's not consistent and not a consistent sign.
It's not consistent. And then if you look at another block, a few blocks back, it will just say buses only. So it is very confusing here. And this is actually right here where it says buses only.
Yeah.
So there is.
But are there right turns?
There.
Yeah, they're right turns.
Are there right turns at the places where it says buses only?
Well, yes. The example that we just showed at 83rd and at 80th and 3rd is a perfect example of a place where you're supposed to be making a right turn from that bus lane, but the sign says buses only, I believe.
Ah, okay.
It is confusing. Okay, thank you, Evelyn.
But you won't get a ticket if you turn from that lane. You will not get a ticket, and you won't crash into anybody because there's no buses coming. There's nobody in the lane because it's a bus lane, so you're pretty safe. Not to say that you shouldn't be watching carefully all the time. Anyway, this is New York City, right?
Right. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, okay. Thank you very much. All right. Yeah.
I see one more. Someone identified as Mags. If you could identify yourself for the record, Mags.
Hang on. Hi, it's Margaret Schwartz.
Okay, thank you, Margaret.
I just had a question. Does the 19th precinct, as well as my understanding is the DOT is in charge of the park drives in Central Park, is that correct?
The transverses?
No, just east-west drives, the 6 mile loop of the park, inside the park, where bicycles are now.
No, it's the 22nd precinct. We cover up to the sidewalk on 5th Avenue.
Okay, all right, so thank you for your service. And my issue is with the DOT right now then, because the DOT is in charge of the park drives, is that correct?
Well, they have some jurisdiction over the park drives, but for enforcement, it's the police. There's a Central Park precinct, as Sergeant Connor said, it's the 22nd precinct.
Okay,
for enforcement.
all right, so just to make the DOT aware, as I tried to report incidents on the drives in Central Park, when you use 311 for the DOT, you have to have an address. So it's almost impossible to report an issue on the drives. If I witness something or speeding bicycles, so there's no record to be kept on what's happening on the east and west drives, north, south, whatever, the 6 mile bicycle loop. And right now they're preparing to put down bicycle lanes that will give e-bikes and regular cyclists lanes. And today I witnessed an e-bike hit a regular cyclist at 7 a.m. in the morning. And because there's no line, so that's a whole other thing that I won't get into, but it's really hard to have any kind of statistic and report anything so that the DOT can say that the park is safe, no one's reporting anything. And it's hard even to send officers there if you can't use 311 to report what you think is a recurring problem? That's, if anybody would like to address that.
We
Hey,
talked about this before, Colleen. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, Margaret, so the Central Park Loop Drives, it's owned by New York City and managed by the Central Park Conservancy.
That's not
And-
what the Central Park Conservancy has said to me.
Okay, and we, that area that you're talking about, there's milling and paving that's happening there. And
Correct.
the markings are supposed to go in within a few weeks, within the next week or so. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm trying to understand, you're calling 311 to file
No, I
complaints,
use,
but it's not.
actually text 311. I don't call 311. So when you're using the texting option for 311, you have to input an address if you're reporting something.
Uh-huh.
And unless I fib and say Tavern on the Green or the Boathouse, just to sort of say things that I'm witnessing that aren't in those areas, just to have it statistically represented as an issue, it's impossible to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so,
Yeah,
I mean,
excuse me,
again,
Colleen. Sorry, go on, and then I want to add something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's owned, I mean, by parks, right?
I
The
tried
loop.
it that way. So I
Yeah.
tried, instead of doing DOT, I tried to do 311 for the Parks Department.
Uh-huh.
Everybody wanted an address.
Yeah.
There is no address for Central Park.
Margaret, I could answer that question. I
Okay.
think there's a very easy answer here. Again, I'm going to share my screen. So if you're not aware of this, and this is a helpful hint for everyone, on the East and West Park drives, each of the lampposts has an identifier, in this case 7501, which E7501,
Craig,
which
I
correlates
really
the
appreciate that, but that's not going to fly on 311.
Yeah, so
They want an actual address.
I'll chime in on this. I'm police officer for the 19th. This issue has been brought up not only for Central Park and those drives that you're talking about, but also along the East River, along the promenade. We've addressed it to the city. I think they're working on it's a city issue with our system that they're trying to implement for these type of complaints to have the public be able to precisely pinpoint those locations. In the system, you cannot do it at this point.
Thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that, because when I understand the paving is going on, but it is like the wild, wild west in Central Park. And it's unfortunate that each agency, whether it was the Conservancy, whether it was Parks, whether it was the DOT, was sort of passing the buck and saying that it's going to be beautiful in a month. And that really doesn't alleviate any concern I have as a runner and just as a human being, having actually witnessed this morning this accident that didn't have to occur. So thank you for telling me it's the 22nd precinct, because the electric bikes will be going faster than 25 miles an hour in Central Park, and we should all be really ready for it. And it doesn't matter about lines, it matters about enforcement. And the Parks Department said to me that there are park rangers everywhere. I can tell you that I run almost every single day or cross that park, and the people I see in the park are not park rangers, similar to what the police officer was saying about having enforcement try to stop a bicycle. They cannot do that job. People are very aggressive and will, they're not trained as police officers are to stop a bike or people from doing something that is out of the code of what the color of the lane is. I can't wait to see how the park will look. They did a fantastic job, done early in the middle of the night, but still, it's like a free for all. It's like, God forbid, what's happening at Newark Airport without anybody just minding the store.
And that was done by DOT, by the way.
Yes, and I am commending you on the work that was done in a very timely manner and faster. But at the same time, you will not find me in that park after 8 a.m. or during 6 p.m. because there are too many people, there are too many bikes, and I would like to stay as an able-bodied person that can still walk, run, and cycle.
And that's obviously an enforcement issue.
Correct. So I can't wait once the lines go down and the colors go down that somebody's out there enforcing it. And frankly, to have police officers doing that, I don't know. I think their time is better spent doing other things, but it's just New York City, as somebody said, and hopefully we can all follow the rules and get along. Thank you.
Thank you. And as Sergeant Connor said, they're looking at trying to do something about this black hole where there's no address that people can use to report things. And hopefully because there should be a way to do that. That's not appropriate, frankly.
Yeah, and you know what, Margaret? What we can do on our end at DOT, we can have a conversation with 311, because what I find with 311, the key word is the language and location. And sometimes you might not have the location, and 311 is not going to take your complaint based on that. So I think we need to have a conversation with 311 and how they take in complaints and how it's being logged and transferred to other city agencies.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. I don't see at this point. Let's go to the board, and let me take people that have had their hands up. And Sebastian, Alan Clark has been very patient and had his hand up for a while. So let's recognize Sebastian.
Thank you, Chuck, and thank you to the officers from the NYPD for joining us this evening. Really appreciate your time. Two topics I'd love to just ask about. One on the one we mentioned there on trucks unloading, and another on blocked intersections and crosswalks. So that one on trucks unloading, I look down 3rd Avenue out my window and I see it all the time, trucks unloading in the avenue. Sergeant, you mentioned that there were some issues with the fines where these companies just, they accept having these tickets as the cost of doing business. Is that something where changing the fine regime could be an option to address that? Escalating fines, something like that? Obviously, we can't have our streets being blocked by unloading vehicles if our current rules aren't able to stop the issue. Is that something we could look at changing?
So the way I kind of see it, working in the city half my life, living in the city for 10 years, if someone double parks, right, I think we'd be hard pressed to find someone that has never double parked and dropped someone off at a Starbucks or pick somebody up. I don't think I've ever met a person that hasn't stopped and like, hey, jump in, jump out. We all do it, to be honest. So having said that, the trucks, when they take a half hour, let's say they're unloading like a pallet, or let's say they're delivering furniture, it's obviously not 2 minutes or 5 minutes. It's out of hand. And, I come to work at 6 a.m. and 5:40 in the morning, there's double park trucks on 2nd Avenue. I think it's gotten way out of hand. The construction's crazy, but I mean, at the same time, they do have to like do business too and drop things off. I don't think there's an ideal way for an 18-wheeler like drop off supplies. Like I think a lot of them are construction. I know on 2nd Avenue there's a few bigger buildings that are going up and bigger projects. They probably have licenses to do that. That's a little different from like the furniture delivery or the smaller guy, the smaller business. As far as like escalating fines, that might be a tough thing. And I think the one thing that would stop it, which this will probably never happen, this is just from like basically like a uniformed person, is to just have zero tolerance. Like someone walks by, just scan the license, and that's the one thing to me that would stop it. The cars definitely. Go ahead.
Because I get a lot of these complaints, and I also get a lot of ideas from the businesses, and I think in the long run, there needs to be a look at, over time we've had new businesses open up along the avenues, and some of the parking in front of these locations are for personal vehicles, and a lot of the time those are where we have the double parked 18-wheelers. If those locations that are constantly getting deliveries for their stores, which ultimately these stores are used by the community. They need their stuff, and it has to happen for these drop-offs. If maybe those locations in front of certain businesses are altered to where instead of having personal vehicles or metered parking, it's transferred over to where the trucks have parking, because a lot of the times there isn't an area for them to park because it's not a loading zone for them.
Exactly. I think actually later this evening we have a proposal that we'll be considering for a particular loading zone that our business has asked for that. So that's something we can look at expanding across the district.
Yeah, and a lot of the times when we do see that change, the businesses do a great job maintaining that for their load-ins and load-outs. It doesn't get used. They don't have a lot of double parked cars at the locations. It corrects the issue, and the street's a lot cleaner. They can maintain cleanliness of the street, so there's a lot of upside to it too. And I've been working in the 19th since
Sebastian?
2011, so I've been here for a while.
Sebastian, one question. Is that at a commercial meter area?
Certain areas are commercial, and then some of them are just vehicle parking for the vehicles.
Yeah, I'm almost sure that that's the commercial area, and private parking has been occurring. So if that is the case, that must be an enforcement issue.
You
had another question.
Yeah, if I could, thank you for addressing that one on the trucks. The other one would be about intersections. I see all the time blocked boxes where vehicles will not make it through, the light will turn red, traffic's trying to come through the other way, they're spilling back over the crosswalk, and pedestrians then have to try to weave through these vehicles. As someone who walks around the neighborhood, that's a frightening situation, especially when you have strollers or elderly people who are less confident on their feet. How can we prevent blocked intersections and ensure that once the light is red, the intersection and the crosswalks are clear?
I absolutely agree. It used to be a big deal. I think Larkin could probably tell you a long time ago, but I think there needs to be a resurgence of that. It used to be one of the biggest deals to block the box. You would get a real heavy fine, which I think I agree with you. Anytime people are not in the crosswalk, they're more susceptible to me to getting struck or God forbid something worse. But I see it every day. People, they try to overshoot. They try to make that next light. Meanwhile, you're just going to sit at another red light. But I will definitely look into it and try to put that on the list of high priority things to deal with. Because to me, it's a big deal too. Because you're blocking the other direction of traffic, and it just builds up, and it makes it worse. I'll definitely look into that and get a code, and I'll have the cops stress that too, because to me that's a big deal too. I couldn't agree more with you.
Thank you. Really appreciate both of your time.
I think, Sebastian, this has been an issue that's come before our board for a long time, and I think we've found out that issuing tickets doesn't always do the job to go to your first inquiry, and that as Officer Larkin said, changing parking regulations to allow trucks and deliveries to use more of the parking spaces in front of the businesses is one thing, and DOT is also trying to lay out areas where you can have trucks park and they can then make deliveries from a particular location. They have a few locations that they're looking at, so I think that's going to be the wave of the future, hopefully. And I'd appreciate the thoughts. John McClement, I believe, was next. John, can we unmute John?
Yeah, thank you. What's of most concern to me, and I haven't heard any discussion of this at all, is the out of control behavior of cyclists of all kinds. You feel like you're taking your life in your hands to step out your front door, and crossing an avenue, crossing a street, whether you have a light or not, doesn't seem to matter to them. They go faster than the cars. Just as an example, this afternoon, I was walking down the west side of York Avenue, and a guy on a bike came speeding up towards me, And when I scolded him and said, get it off the sidewalk, he turned around and came back to curse me out and tell me how wrong I was. That's the kind of thing where I'd like to see some enforcement so I don't feel I'm, jeopardizing my life just to go to the store. Thank you.
Absolutely. I think that the chairman was just saying, and I agree with him, summoning someone is not always going to work. Like if I give like a bicyclist a summons and he doesn't even have an ID, he could just basically give me a fake name. But like, that's why I really want to stress with some of these outreach things, like you must look, you must take extra care looking. Cause I myself, I think the bike lanes are more dangerous than the cars out there. And I couldn't agree more. Like we need to do more to like stop these reckless bicyclists, but the summoning is not always working. Like the enforcement side of it, I think people have to be a little more careful and take a little bit more care. But that's kind of letting the bicyclists off the hook a little bit. We do need to enforce.
Well, perhaps licensing and in requiring insurance could be one step in that direction. But it's just awful. So thank you.
That would be something. Yes.
John.
Yeah, I think they're pushing for legislation. Alex Boris's office is pushing for that type of legislation to be passed. Another thing, when I was speaking of the metered parking, I was referring to the commercial metered parking. I'm talking about signage for loading and unloading only. So a lot of the vehicles that are taking up the spots, yeah, they may be commercial and they're parked there, paying the meter. They don't need to load or unload, but I'm talking about a loading or unloading zone. Might help certain locations for these larger supermarkets or businesses that are unloading these trucks.
Thank you.
The commercial meter, if I may add, is for the purpose. So if there are vehicle parked in that area that are not supposed to be parked, they should be ticketed. And I go back again to the lack of enforcement in that particular case.
So a commercial vehicle can park there. They don't have to necessarily be loading or unloading or doing anything with the vehicle. They might have a commercial vehicle, a plumber might be parking his vehicle there. He's a commercial vehicle parked, go do his job and then come back to his vehicle later.
It's just falls back on enforcement and to make sure that that particular area is for commercial vehicles that are appropriately working as commercial. If they are unloading uploading, that's the purpose of it.
Well, I'll tell you this, Raphael.
I've
been on this board a long time.
You have 3 hour commercial vehicle.
That doesn't work exactly what Officer Larkin's saying.
No,
it's 3 hours. Nobody's going to come back in 3 hours.
3 hours. These trucks don't even unload for that long. The commercial vehicles, it could be a plumber parking his car and he might go to 5 or 6 different residents in that 3 hour period and he's legally parked for that 3 hour duration, and that necessarily doesn't have to be at his vehicle. He can't possibly do his job if he's at his vehicle. He's legally parked. There's no summons to give if he's a commercial truck parked in a metered spot paying the meter for 3 hours.
Understood. Craig, you could very well request uploading zone in that area. We could entertain it and investigate it if it is necessary.
Well, that's what, we can look at that. That's what we've done. We found actually when we've changed the regulations, that helps more than, just talking about enforcement. Judy Schneider, I believe, was next. Go ahead, Judy.
I have two items. One is Officer Larkin, maybe this is something that you could ask Deputy Inspector Zuber about. And speaking with the police commissioner and bringing it up maybe to the mayor, has anyone talked about having trucks loading and unloading for the establishments at night? Many other cities do it, and it would take the trucks off the street during the day, and it certainly would help our traffic situation. And I was just wondering whether the police whether it went up the food chain and it ever got to the mayor's office, that discussion.
I'm not sure how far up, but We do get complaints though as well late at night. These trucks unloading with the noise complaints. A lot of the residents live on the lower levels, and the trucks are pulling up, and they're refrigerator trucks a lot of the times, and they're running. So you might fix one issue and then you run into another.
Right.
But yeah, at night is best for a lot of things. Definitely, it's not as busy. Then you just run into another issue. But I'll find out how far up that request will go. And see, I know that they do stop in the evening hours around 9. A lot of the deliveries, and some locations do it like your breakfast spots do overnight to get ready for early morning openings. Certain businesses do that, and that's where I get the complaints of noise, and it happens on a daily basis.
Okay, thank you. And Officer Connors, question for you. When you've got a bike going 30, 40 miles an hour, how do you stop it to give it a ticket without getting yourself killed?
Are you talking about the bikes or the cars?
Well,
Bikes.
either. The cars, I guess you
These
ring
cops
and
jump
they pull over the cars.
these
But
cops jump in front of the bikes. That's what they
yeah,
do. That's what
you stop in front of the bike. So you're really taking a chance that the bike isn't going to crash into you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Has that happened at all?
I don't think so. I think most cops would probably like give it enough leeway to be able to jump out of the way. Or when you're on a bike and you run into a person, you're gonna get hurt too. So these bicyclists know that, and if they run into like me or Larkin, they're also gonna fall and get hurt. So that's a big part of it, to be honest.
Okay, well, thank you both for all the good work that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I want to recognize Rita Popper, but before Rita talks, I just want to say a few things about Rita, who has been a great member of our committee and board for a number of years, and she just announced that she's going to be stepping down after her term, which will be up shortly. And I want to thank Rita, I think we all do, on the committee and for all the great stuff that she's done and all the help that and all the causes that she's fought very valiantly and a lot of times successfully for. And we really appreciate what she's done and hope to get her wisdom going forward if she's available. So with that, I'll recognize Rita Popper. Can we unmute Rita? There you go. There you go, Rita.
Thank you, Chuck, for those very kind words. This committee works very, very hard, and it's a difficult job. And I want to thank everyone. It's been, I'm not going away. I purposely came to this meeting with this particular subject. I was crossing 2nd Avenue, and when I say I'm crossing, I'm a senior citizen. I'm walking with a cane. I cross as quickly as I possibly can, and I don't play with the lights. And another woman, also a senior person, was walking next to me, and we were walking, and out of the clear blue, a bicycle came from we're crossing 2nd Avenue and the traffic is going south. Without even looking, this bicycle was going north. And I really hope, and it's not the first time, and it's not the first time of bicycles going the wrong way in the bike lanes. I really think that we need a campaign that if they do that, to take away their bike, to confiscate the bike, and they have to pay a fine to get it back, because that is a game changer. If you get hit by crossing the street and not looking in the opposite direction, because it's serious. And I hope that the police department takes that into consideration, as well as the DOT. They've all been very responsive, but I want you to know there are more people going in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, Rita,
Thank-
and
thank
and
you.
it's Colleen. I just want to say that I really enjoy working with you, and you are one in a million. And I know we'll continue to collaborate and have conversations. In terms of the bikes riding in the wrong way, we have our street ambassadors, and what we can do, we can work very closely with the precinct, and we can do some targeting enforcement and do some safety outreach to the cyclists at the intersections where this is happening. So if you can just let me know that location, Raphael and I can work with our safety education team, and we can put something together within the next few weeks. So keep me posted. And I wanted to touch base with what Judy mentioned about the trucks making deliveries at night and, the noise that comes from that. Judy, just so you know that the New York City Department of Transportation acknowledges the issue of the noisy trucks during off-peak hours and is working to address this through a program like our off-hour deliveries. It's called the OHD program. And what that is that we're working with a lot of the trucking industries to install, equipment on their trucks that will have low noise, while they're making these deliveries, such as, handheld pallet, and backup alarms. So we are working with the trucking industry to make sure that when they're doing these deliveries off hours, that the noise is minimal, as what you explained earlier. So we will definitely keep the board informed as these issues arise, and we'll work very closely with the NYPD to address these as well.
And I'd like to add to what Colleen's have said. Rita, it's been a pleasure to listen to you while I have attended the last 2-month meeting. Your idea of taking away the bicycle is doable, but that has to be through legislative movement by reaching out to your council member, because that has to come from City Hall. And that's a great idea. It could be done.
Thank you.
Okay, Laurie Boros, I believe, is next. Laurie.
Yeah, wait, before Laurie, since Rita spoke, I just want to extend my congratulations on the conclusion of Rita's long tenure here on the board, and you will be missed. It has been wonderful all these years working with you, and wish you the best in your post-community board life. And thank you for everything you've done for this committee.
Laurie, go ahead.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Rita, for everything that you've done. You've been an amazing, amazing person, personally and professionally. And really, I just wanted to thank Police Officer Larkin for mentioning my son's legislation. And I also wanted to tell everyone assembled that my son is about to make me a grandmother. So,
Oh, congratulations, Laurie.
Okay.
thank you. That's
Okay.
it.
Okay. So I know, Sebastian, I guess you wanted to say something further.
Yeah, thanks. I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
This is related to the issue of the 311 reporting.
Mm-hmm.
So I offer that we call on the Office of Technology and Innovation to ensure that complaints in locations without street addresses, like parks and esplanades, are able to be easily reported through all 311 apps, websites, and contact points.
Is there a second there? Judy seconds. Okay. And Paul, do we need anything? That's, I think, good.
I just briefly checked in the 311 app, the 311 website. If you have any of these issues in the park or on the esplanade, it just simply does not let you submit it. And
Right.
that seems bad, and we should get OTI to fix it.
Thank you. Do we need any further debate on this? I don't think so. Okay. Craig, you want to take attendance just so we know whose board members are here?
All right, me, Chuck, Sebastian, John McClelland, Judy, Lori, Michelle, Paul, and Rita.
Hey, if you're in favor, you don't have to do anything. All those who would like to vote no or abstain or not voting for any other reason can raise your hand. I don't see anyone. So it passes unanimously. Thank you, Sebastian. I don't see any further questions. Judy, did you have a question about something? Yeah, go ahead, Judy, before we move on.
What do we, on that suggestion of taking the bikes and having them to have to pay to get them back, do we want to pass a resolution about that to get our council members thinking that maybe they need to pass some legislation along that line?
I guess let's just ask Sergeant Connors on this. Do we need, is that something that needs to be in the state, motor vehicle law? I know that, they pass some of these things that cover e-bikes and all these things, and they sort of classified them before they weren't legal and they made them legal. And is this
so
something
right now we can seize them if they're driving them while intoxicated and maybe one or two other infractions. That's it. Or they're driving like if they're deemed reckless. But the standard for reckless on a bicycle it would have to be astronomical. I've never even heard of anyone.
Is that right? Really?
I believe so. Like even with a car, you have to put together like a whole laundry list of violations, maybe like 3 violations consecutively to even charge a motor vehicle of reckless driving. So a bicycle would be tough. But I know if they're driving inebriated or driving intoxicated, we could seize the bicycle. But yeah, I would have to find out also from one of the government websites, like what would have to be done to like seize the bicycle.
So you're saying that's a state issue, not a city issue?
I am honest. I have no idea. I would have to look. I don't know who controls the legislative, who controls the laws of allowing us to be able to seize a bicycle in other circumstances besides the 2 I just mentioned.
Okay, well, could you get back to the board? And if it's a city issue, then Chuck,
We'll
maybe
check on that.
that's something we could bring up next month.
Yeah.
Pretty certain it's a city thing.
It may be a state thing, but we'll check it. Okay. Any further questions for Sergeant Connors or Officer Larkin? If not, we thank you both for coming tonight and very helpful and thoughtful comments, and we appreciate it. And hopefully we'll be able to work together to solve some of these problems that we talked about.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay.
Later.
All right. Next on the agenda, and this follows where something we talked about, request to change the parking regulations on the east side of 3rd Avenue between 75th and 76th Street to a loading zone from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. And there's some metered parking there, I guess, too. And also, I know this block very well. I was just there actually over the weekend. And that's right in front of Citarella's that we're talking about. And so this was a parking change. Is there someone here from Citarella to talk about this?
Yes, that would be me. Good evening.
Okay, Mr. Pate.
Yes.
Okay, why don't you go ahead?
So, and I'm glad, it was a great segue into what I'm asking with virtually it being impossible for any businesses, local businesses like ourselves, to unload a vehicle, to unload a truck. So, we're caught parking in the left lane, in the far left lane, in the far right lane, in the bus lane, because there's so many trucks, and safety is a big issue. Like everybody said, with the bikes flying through and people crossing the street. So I'm requesting that that little part of Third Avenue, and as you said earlier, Chuck, maybe, the new wave is to start with some loading zones. So I'd like to be the start of that new wave and see if that helps that little area on that block. And then, top with all the construction that's going on
Right.
on Third Avenue between 73rd and you could go as far up as 78th. It's double the challenge. So I'm not asking for the whole block because I know part of that block is a bus stop. So I'm asking for the commercial metered area where I would say 70% of the time I'm down there, there's a food truck illegally parked there. There's regular non-commercial cars parked there. Can easily be converted into a nice loading zone where you can fit 2, possibly 3 trucks.
Sure. And this would be from 6 a.m. right to 8 p.m. And
correct. So now,
how many days? How many days on this? And it's paid. How many days are you talking about? Every day?
So let me give you a little info on Citarella and how we operate. So, I think it was Judy that mentioned maybe we could do overnight deliveries, which I don't think would work. But so we produce our products, 90% of our products from scratch. We don't outsource our products. We make them in New York and we deliver to all our stores 3 times a day. That's how fresh we try to get our products in and out to our stores. So I'm willing to take as many days as we can make that a loading zone. I'd like to make it 7 days. I'd like to make it 6. I know Sunday usually doesn't work in the city, right? We leave that for residential parking. But I would take Monday through Saturday and make it a lot easier for not only us, but other businesses on that block.
Yeah, I know that block because I said I was just there on Saturday. My wife likes your coffee, and so she stopped in to get a few bags. She mixes the beans together. So just so happened coincidentally. Okay, any members of the public that would like to speak about this? I see Leah Hanlon has her hand up. Is there anyone? Okay, see, Leah, why don't we unmute?
I think I'm
Leah?
unmuted.
Okay. Go ahead, Leah.
Yes, hi. I'm totally in favor of there being parking zones on the avenues. I only question whether it's appropriate to have stores requesting them to go into effect on their block. Should there not be a more comprehensive review of where the zones should go? And I don't want to delay the zones going into effect, but on 2nd Avenue in front of Gristides at 75th Street, I mean, that's a train wreck there. There's always vehicles, big trucks unloading there. And there's many other such places. So I'm sure Citarella has a big problem on its hands, but are they the worst of all the places? I'm just wondering whether there should be a wider deployment of these spots and not case by case when stores request them.
Well, that's always been a difficult situation because we haven't gone through, and DOT would have to probably make a study and do some stuff, and so we relied on stores that have particular problems to come to the committee, and we've dealt with them on a case by case basis and stuff, and it's a tricky thing. It's trickier, I think, to try to go through the whole district and do something like that.
Okay,
Rita.
I guess I can understand that perspective.
Sure.
Yeah, to be clear, this wouldn't be an exclusive Citarella zone. This would be a general loading zone that any business any truck with a commercial plate can use.
Right.
You know, I would point out that on Second Avenue, between at 78th, where all the restaurants are that had sheds, but have requested permits for the new 6 months or however many months it is outdoor dining. All of the time when they had sheds, vehicles would park. I mean, delivery trucks would park on the traffic lane behind the sheds. And, you know, Second Avenue was frequently one lane because of all of that double parking. And it really was a train wreck, and I expect that it will continue to be. So I just, the case by case approach, as merited as Cinderella's situation is, I would really like somebody to request these zones for Second Avenue.
Thank you, Leah. Okay, Rita Popper. Let me recognize Rita.
I think.
Go ahead, Rita. Yeah.
Was I unloaded? Unmuted?
Yes.
I think it's a great idea. I happen to shop at Cinderella, and I get on the bus at Cinderella, and the truck that is double parked, the Cinderella truck, doesn't allow the bus to stop near the curb, and therefore people in wheelchairs or walkers make it very difficult to get on the bus, and even with me with a cane. So I am all for giving Cinderella space away from blocking the bus.
Thank you, Rita.
Thank you,
Laurie?
Rita.
Laurie? Morris, next.
Yes, thank you, Chuck. Mr. Pate, this is actually off the topic. First of all, I support the idea of you getting a loading zone in front of your store, because I think that that's the least that we can do. But I wanted to ask you a question about this information is like 3 years old, but when I was campaigning for my son, I frequently ended up on, your corner, and every day at the end of business, I don't know whether it was like 7:30 or 7 o'clock or whatever, at the end of the day, people would unload mountains of like leftover food, and people knew about it, and so people would come and pick through it, and which is all fine. But I just wondered, have you ever spoken to one of the more organized food pickup places, like City Harvest, which picks up food from, that has been left over from the days, restaurants, they do it at restaurants and other places like that. Have you ever contacted them? Because it just seems like an enormous waste of food that could be going to people who need it.
Yeah, so Laurie, that's a great question. So with the compost law coming into effect, soon as we found out about it, we changed our whole process on our waste. We've limited anything that is getting thrown out in the stores. You'll see a big difference. So we've had that problem Upper East, Upper West, and also in our village location, where we would put out what we would call trash at night, right? And some of us, including myself, would be like, wait a second, half of that's not really trash. That's why these people would come, and rightfully so. It's kind of free food, high-end gourmet. So that process has changed. We are working with City Harvest, and we've centralized that out of our facility in the Bronx. So our process has completely changed. A lot of our goods that we deem still good will come back to our facility, where we employ about 350 people. We use most of that to feed those associates for free. And anything that we deem as good product, we donate it to City Harvest out of our Hunts Point facility.
Okay.
So I'm thinking it alleviated a lot that congestion at night, because we're really not putting that out anymore. So
Okay.
great point, because we went through this, and perfect timing. It was about 3 years ago. That's when I joined the company.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Michelle Birnbaum is next. Unmute Michelle.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
thanks,
Michelle.
Chuck. What is the parking on that street currently?
So on Third Avenue, if I actually drew up a little map on Excel, because that's all I could do. Can I share that? No, we could look at it, or I can't share my screen.
No, you can share your screen.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Go ahead. Will, yeah.
Share.
I know you sent something in. I saw it, looked at it. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that visible or
not yet?
Not yet.
Let me see. Maybe I did something wrong here. Here we go.
Yes.
Yeah, there it is now.
Yeah. So if we look to the left, Third Avenue, 75th Street. So that's the east curb, closest to the bottom of the screen, west, up north. You have constructions. There's basically no parking whatsoever. Again, I'm on the east curb of Third Avenue. Then there's the bus lane, which is in front of Citarella. No parking at all. And then there's no standing. I'm not sure if everybody's following me or can see my cursor. And then there's the loading zone request.
What is in the spot now that's the current loading zone request? What is the parking there now?
So that would be commercial parking.
Meters?
Metered, yes. Not meters, but the
machines. The machines,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, but for commercial parking.
Correct, which makes it impossible to load and unload. And then across the street on the west curb is all commercial parking. And then the bike lane is there. I've also added the commercial.
All right. All right. So thanks for that. So at the moment, there is commercial parking, paid commercial parking. I have a concern, not because I'm diminishing what your need is. I'm sure it's valid. But what you're proposing would put this loading zone closest to Citarella. Now,
No, that's not correct. It's actually an inconvenience, because closest to Citarella would be me asking to move the bus stop to the end of the block and then taken right in front of the store.
What justifies the no standing? What's the reason for the no standing?
I'm not sure. That is the building next to us, which I believe is 1317.
Is that a medical facility or something?
No, it's not. It's a residential building.
So do we know why it's no standing in that particular place?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's Colleen. Maybe it's a regulation we gave the residential building for pickup and drop off, so they can have access to the curb.
Okay. Anyway, my concern is this. We gave a loading zone of 100 feet to we didn't give it to Fairway, but we put it in front. We accommodated Fairway with the understanding that 100 feet of loading and unloading, which starts like at 5, 6 in the morning and goes until 10 o'clock at night, it was the understanding that it would be available to all commercial entities. In other words, it was not designated for Fairway. But Fairway puts their forklift truck in there or their pallets in there. And so in essence, 100 feet is used only for them. They have monopolized it.
So Michelle, you're talking about the Upper West Side.
No, I'm talking about 86th Street
Oak Street, she
between
means. Yeah.
Okay,
86th Street
I'm not
between
familiar
first and
with
second.
with the
No, I'm
what,
just talking about in terms of what we have granted.
right, because
Or,
what you're saying sounds exactly what they do on the Upper West Side Fairway.
well, that may be, but I'm talking about the
Yeah.
east side
Yeah, yep.
between second and third, or first
Got
and
it.
second and third. Anyway,
Third.
the point is this. I could see a loading zone there, but only with a guarantee that it would be open to others. And also, I take issue with the hours. I think from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. is too long. You know when your deliveries come in and out. Maybe most of them are early in the morning. I could see a loading zone, say, that would be over at 11 o'clock, like we have in some places, loading between 7 a.m. and 10. I can see that. And then the rest of the time, paid commercial parking. But so those are my two concerns. Number one, the length of time, and number two, the availability to others that would have the same kind of need. And also, just to comment on nighttime loading and loading, there have been too many complaints about nighttime noise and disturbances. And I think nighttime deliveries, while they sound like a good idea because of the traffic, are way too disruptive for the neighborhood. When you drop a pallet, when you throw something off a truck, a big truck, when a motor is running with refrigeration, it's way too long. It's very, very disturbing. What could be helpful is if these very large trucks loaded onto small trucks that came in and out of the area and service the area that way. They're quieter, they're smaller, they have less merchandise on them, so they can be loaded and unloaded more quickly. But in terms of what you've come to us with today, that's my concern about it, that it's available to others and that the hours are too long, and that when the hours are shortened, it reverts back to paid commercial, but again, not past like 7 o'clock at night, so that after 7 o'clock, it would be open to the public because there are restaurants nearby. People drive up and they would value parking, not commercial, just people parking to go to a restaurant or somewhere else. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, so Michelle, I would say that as a company, we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't barricade the area and consider it for ourselves. As far as the size of the trucks, we use small box trucks. We don't use trailers. We use the 25, the average of 25 feet. So you would be able to fit probably 2 or 3 of those there. We only send one at a time. So there would be room for 2 other trucks. And the reason why I chose those hours, or for the reason, I mentioned earlier, is that we send 3 trucks out per day, which I think we shouldn't do, but we're obsessed with fresh product for the community. So our first truck goes out and usually hits the store at 6 a.m. Our second truck, which is a truck that we send with fish that arrive late from the market, with items that didn't make it on the early truck, that gets there at around noon. And then we have our closing truck that sets us up for the morning and collects stuff that we have in the store, whether it's containers, milk crates, due to room inside the store. So that's why I chose those hours, so you're aware of that. That's the only reason.
Can I mention too that it's not a comparable situation on the 86th Street Fairway thing. They have a much bigger area, and there have been issues which we've talked to them about, and they've tried, and they generally try to correct those. This is a much smaller area, and I think it's a different situation because
how many feet are you asking for?
It's up to the no standing zone, right? From the corner.
Yes, from the
76th
corner
Street
to
the no standing.
yes.
So how many
standing.
feet is that, or how many trucks will that hold at one time?
Let me see if I wrote down. So here's where I have the, if everybody's still looking, this is where the signs and the regulations now. I'm gonna say that it's less than half the block, a little less than half the block.
I think that's right. From what I've
Yes,
seen.
because the bus stop, and then when you
Right.
get to that, so the no standing is 25 feet. I had measured that. It's slightly less than half the block.
Right.
And away from the bus stop. The goal was to get away from that bus stop, because I've observed what happens there. I've observed early in the morning. I've observed when school comes out with that bus stop, and you know, being a parent of 3 kids, you know, watching what happens in front of our store, because the bus stops, you know, it's a danger zone. It's, how do I put it? 3rd Avenue right now in front of Citarella is a real life game of Frogger, for anybody that's familiar with Frogger.
The other thing is the number of days a week. I would be more comfortable with 5 days a week, leaving the weekend without commercial, just open for regular metered parking. Sunday, there's no meters.
It's been
in
commercial
use.
parking now. It's commercial parking now.
Yes, I know that's what Ms.
Yeah.
Payton said.
I think it's commercial. Yeah, it's commercial every day until
Except
Sunday.
Sunday.
That's why
Correct.
I would take the 6 days. I would take, honestly, I would take the 5 days. I would take any days based on what I see happening on 3rd Avenue.
Right. Okay. Next,
Okay, thank
I
you.
was just going to add, it is about 100 feet, or just over 100 feet. I just measured it, assuming that 25 feet you mentioned, is the distance between where the bus stop is and when it would start. From the bus stop sign to the crosswalk is 130 feet, or approximately 130 feet.
So it's
130
less
minus
than half.
25 is 105, yes.
So it's a little bit less than half the block, Craig, right?
Yes, because the block would be, I believe 220 or 240. I'm just looking from where, from crosswalk to crosswalk. It is, from crosswalk to crosswalk is about 205 feet or 200 feet, somewhere around there. So it's about half of the distance between the crosswalk.
All right, a little less than half the block was my estimation when I measured.
Yeah. Mhm.
okay. Sebastian, I believe, is next. Go ahead, Sebastian.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion and speak to it briefly if seconded. I move that we approve the application as presented.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Okay. Is there a second?
I see some seconds.
Did you see some seconds there? Yes.
Just
I
to
see
be
Lori.
clear, sorry, just to be clear, what is again being requested? Which hours? 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. or
8
to what?
p.m.
Okay, because the application that's posted says 6 p.m.
I thought
So
it said
it
6 to
does
8.
look like, I'm looking at the document now, the first page says 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. The layout diagram says 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
That's what I want clarification.
And it was posted as what I have on here is
It's 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Yeah, I just want to make
yeah.
sure that we're consistent there.
Yep. No, I
Okay.
agree. Okay.
So
Seconded by Lori. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Sebastian.
sorry, and second question for Sebastian, number of days a week, are we talking 5, 6, or 7? Because that wasn't identified in the.
I'm proposing 7 as originally in the application.
Okay.
The thing that I'm seeing here is I appreciate the concerns of the business. Really, I'm in this for the bus riders and the people who are trying to get from the curb onto the bus, making sure that our bus passengers can move through 3rd Avenue quickly and that people can safely get on and off the bus. I looked on the Google Street View image of this exact location, and there is a Citarella truck in the bus lane blocking it in the actual Street View image.
Which Sebastian, I'm glad you brought that up. And that frustrated me because I'm down there weekly, and we stopped that. Our drivers are no longer allowed to park in the bus lane.
I appreciate that. All the same, I think that getting this loading zone will be a big positive for the community, for our bus riders, for everyone. Avoiding this Frogger situation. I would also, beyond this particular proposal, love for us to take a look elsewhere along 3rd Avenue and our other avenues at other places where we can have more of these truck loading zones. No one benefits from blocked avenues, and we can use our curb space most efficiently.
Any further discussions on this here? Okay. Craig, do you want to take any attendance to make sure we still have the same group?
Yes. So currently it's myself, Chuck. Wow. Okay. Myself, Chuck, John McClement, Judy, Lori, Michelle, Paul, Rita, Sebastian. So it is the same.
In group. Okay. All in favor? You don't have to do anything. Anyone who wants to vote no or abstain or not voting for cause can raise your hands. Michelle?
Abstain.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. I believe that passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pate. So it
Thank
passes.
you.
It'll be up at our board meeting. Is our board meeting, Will, are we having it, when is the board meeting? Is it in 2 weeks or 1 week?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. So
Yeah, the
2 weeks from
21st.
today, the 21st, this will come at the full board meeting.
Okay, and then there'll be another, I'm not sure how the process is, so then there'll be another decision, or?
What happens is there's a public session, and if you want to talk about it in a public session in the beginning, you can do that. Then when we get to the business section, we'll present our report, and we'll present this resolution in favor of it, and there'll be discussion among the board members at that time and a vote. And it's not
Okay.
official until it passes the full board.
Right, okay, very good.
If I may add, Chuck.
Yeah, go ahead, Brad.
It has to come through a process at DOT. And
Right.
then you could explain that if you will, please.
Yeah, I mean, it's a recommendation of DOT. DOT, you will generally go out and take a look, and they'll then get back and say, you know, whether they approve it or if there's some issues with it. And generally DOT, you know, goes along with the recommendations, but they want to look at the situation and see things. So ours are recommendations essentially. Mr. Pate.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Do we have any old business or new business or anything that anyone wants to bring up?
Let's
At
do
this
DOT
point?
updates, and then I have a number of updates to
Oh, okay.
provide.
All right. Do we have any DOT updates? Yes. At this point, Raphael or
Yes,
no?
yes. I know Colleen is on the call,
Right.
but I must, if you give me 2 minutes, in the absence of a formal introduction of my responsibility towards CB8, I'd like just to tell you a little bit about where I come from. I've been in DOT for almost 3 years, and I will be taking some of the responsibility from Colleen. Colleen has been very helpful in teaching me and kind of guiding me to some of the issues that she has been dealing with CB8. I've been working for the city for close to 20 years, actually more than 20 years. I work with the New York City Controller, Bill Thompson, back in 2002. I stayed there for 8 years. I was the director of the Community Center Service unit. And then my last, just to go very quickly to my last working for the city, or the city council I was the director of constituent services with Bill Perkins the late Bill Perkins, council member Bill Perkins. So I have the experience, and I'm coming from an advocacy background. I also was the a community board members at Community Board 12 up in Washington Heights. So I just want to share that with you because indeed we have not had a formal introduction of what I have done in the past. And right now I'm getting very familiar with some of the issues that you have been going through, assisted obviously by Colleen, who is on the call. So I just like to kind of share this with you. So I will be able to learn more about the issues and understand it, and also assist the CBA to kind of accomplish what they have set for community betterment.
Thank you, Raphael. Welcome, and we appreciate that. And Colleen has worked with us very closely over a number of years, and we've appreciated all the help and work that she's done. And we're looking forward to working with you at this point. Rita, do you want to say something? Go ahead, unmute Rita. There you go.
Raphael, congratulations. You are being taught by a very, very, very special person. Colleen has weathered the storm with us. Things under old business, new business. I would be remiss if I didn't ask this question. On East 91st Street, James Cagney Place, only half the street had their lights changed to halogen lights and lowered. And the lower half has still lights that are about 55 years old, 60 years old, and they're out. They are incandescent lights. Most of them are out, making it very dark, especially with the tree cover. And these lights are now up in the trees because they were installed when the trees were little and the trees grew and the lights didn't. And Colleen was going to check on that. I don't know why. Half the street was done and DOT said, we'll be back. That was 4 or 5 years ago. And the lights are now really, many of them are out. Is there any possibility of getting the continuation of the lights from the top to the bottom of the hill?
Hey, Rita, it's Colleen. So the reason why, and you know, it's interesting that you raised this because I was in a meeting today and we approved a lighting for a location in the city, and we were talking about you know, the length of the poles, and the reason we decided to go not for 12 feet but more of an 8 feet is because of the you know, the trees that are growing in the area, which is what you're experiencing there in James Cagney. We have a new contractor that's on board, and I'm going to raise this with them to see what we can do. In total, how many lights are out? Because if they're out, we can come and take a look at them and replace, you know, repair them. How many lights are out?
About 4 are out. They are not normal lights. They're not Cobra lights. They are square boxes with a light inside and a light on top. All the lights on the top are all out.
Okay, I'm going to send an email to our street lighting division and let them know. So I'll schedule an inspection.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that. Yeah, I'll send them I'll shoot them an email once I get off the meeting with you. And I'll keep you posted. The other thing, just to give you an update to the Transportation Committee, is that First Deputy Commissioner Margaret Forgione and Deputy Manhattan Borough Commissioner Jennifer Santinas, they had a site meeting with Councilmember Menon regarding the progression of the traffic signals on 3rd Avenue. And what we mentioned, and Valerie Mason was there as well, but I wasn't at that meeting. It was mentioned that, the changes will remain. We're going to monitor it. And we will keep the community board abreast of any issues that may arise. But I don't have much details about, the meeting. But I can get, some details and I'll share it with Will tomorrow and he can, pass it along to the Transportation Committee.
You need to do that, Colleen, because that was going to be one of the items that I was going to speak to. Because Valerie provided Chuck and I with an update on this, so I was going to share it.
Sure. I mean, if you can go ahead and share it and just let me know your thoughts, and we can regroup about this.
Yeah.
I think that would be very helpful, Craig. And I just wanted to thank Rita for the welcoming. We're going to be anything else that you have, don't hesitate to bring it up to us.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Raphael. So Valerie Mason, our board chair, had communicated to us that she did go on this walkthrough of Third Avenue with the council member and with DOT's first deputy commissioner and I guess acting commissioner. And they said that that DOT was going to start a study to see how effective the changes that they've made on Third Avenue have been, and they're going to come back to the community board upon completion with the results. And prior to the study, they're going to be asking for feedback from the community as it relates to particular trouble spots and such. So Valerie did invite them to come to one of our transportation committee meetings or even the full board to give a notification of that study. So that's the update that Valerie wants to provide. While on that site visit, Valerie also took the group past the Fox 5 sites, and they did observe the double and triple parking that exists all up and down the street, and they even saw it while a bus was coming down the street. So Margaret Forgione thought that this was more of an issue for the NYPD, and she didn't see anything more that the DOT can necessarily do, but the council member said that she was going to write a letter to the Fox 5 management indicating that this is a situation that can't continue. And in addition, DOT said that they would send a letter to the NYPD asking for additional enforcement on that. Valerie also asked that we mention that she did mention at this meeting the ongoing issue regarding the Queensboro Bridge and the pedestrian pathway opening being delayed, and DOT commiserated with our concerns, but they said that essentially it's the mayor and the mayor's office that is now in control of the decision as to how to move forward with that. And then finally, for those of you who were part of this meeting last month, we had a discussion about the York Avenue transportation study and the adjacent issues on the FDR Drive, especially at the 73rd Street entrance. And Valerie did mention that issue at the meeting as well. And then again, she heard in relation to the concerns regarding the ongoing sewer project down in the low 60s that project is delayed again. So she did receive confirmation on that. So those are updates that she wanted me to provide, all coming from the walkthrough.
Thanks, Greg. Other questions? I see Lo Vandervalk is here. Lo, did you want to comment or ask a question?
Yes. This would be new business, I guess. Is that okay?
Yep, of course.
Two things. Madison Avenue is being repaved.
Yeah, yes, we know.
So we're wondering, when will the paving actually occur? Because we're now dealing with a very difficult pavement situation. Are we asking too much?
That's usually a schedule work, so that can be found. And you could also reach out into our webpage, look for the schedule for repaving a street, particularly in Manhattan.
But one of the things that Lo's talking about Raphael, and I know that Colleen knows this, is that they stripped the street, and and Madison has been stripped for a number of blocks, and it stays stripped for a very long time because the schedule takes a while, and that's the question, is whether or not there can be less time between the scraping and repaving. And I know that there's
Okay.
schedules.
So
Go ahead,
this is a question that we get very often when we mill a street and it's left open for 2 to 3 weeks, and then we go and we pave it. The reason why that's being done is because we have meetings with all of the utility companies, and we give them an opportunity to go in there to repair their infrastructure. And that usually takes time. So we want them to make these repairs when the street is open rather than when we pave the street, because once we pave the street, it's protected. It's protected. And we don't want a utility to go in there and rip up the street, because chances are they're not going to restore it back in kind. So that's why the street is left open for 2 to 3 weeks. And sometimes it may take a little longer depending on the weather. As we saw, we've had a lot of rain last year, which delayed a lot of our milling and paving schedule.
Okay. That's a helpful explanation. And I might just add, we have, I think that when they pave it, could they make sure that the manhole covers are flush?
Are flush.
Yes,
Yes,
because
yes.
we've had terrible problems at 94th and Madison with the
Yeah.
non-flush manhole. They make a lot of noise.
Yeah, they do. They have to pave it in such a way where the covers are flushed, because if not, the covers are not going to be secured. And what you might have in some cases too, again, because and this is not a result of the milling and paving. What happens is that, Madison Avenue is a heavily trafficked area. So what you're going to have, you're going to see there might be a few manhole covers that are going to shift. Whenever that happens, you can just let Will know, and we have our highway inspectors. They will go out there, they will inspect the covers, and they will issue a corrective action request to the appropriate utility, whether it's Con Ed or it's DEP or it's Verizon.
Okay, Colleen, thank you. Thank you for that. Okay,
You're welcome.
I do have a second question, Chuck, if I may.
Okay, go ahead, Flo.
This is really an older issue. We have a problem with the traffic light at Madison and 96th Street on the little island at the southeast corner. There's a separate little island, and that island has a traffic lights stationed there. And that traffic light has been hit by a truck on the 28th of February, and the replacement has shifted from time to time and has also gotten hit by trucks or cars. So,
Lovan, is that a traffic signal or a pedestrian signal?
I think it's a traffic signal for oncoming traffic coming from the west side going east, because there's a narrowing of the lane there, and the island is what narrows the lane, and it's on the island that there is a traffic light, and that is the one that's being hit continuously.
Hey, so Lo, I'm very familiar with that. That actually, that request came to our office, and we're looking into that. What we found out is that the markings are missing in the roadway. So there is a design that's being put together to install the markings. And I think that's where the confusion is. It has nothing to do with the island.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
So
we have an excellent video that I will share with the community board, and maybe it can be passed on to you. That really shows you how it's an incredible video. You see it happening. So you may change your mind about what the cause is. And I guess I have your email, so I can send it to you directly as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you on
You're
both
welcome, Lo.
accounts, Colleen.
Judy Schneider? Go ahead, Judy.
Yeah, well, Craig, when you were talking about Fox, It reminded me that the police made a request for additional parking spaces for their vehicles because it's like a free-for-all around 67th Street with all the police cars they have. I was just wondering if Colleen could tell us whether any decision has been made by the DOT to give them maybe between Lex and Park on 67th Street parking spaces or somewhere in the area near the precinct.
Okay, so Judy, that request is still being reviewed by our authorized parking. It's likely that we might give them a few spaces, but we're not going to give them the numbers that they're requesting.
Well,
That's going to be too much.
Yeah, they have 30 or more vehicles, but when Nick came to make the presentation, I think he asked for 5 spaces, which is not a lot. And it would seem to me that like maybe the north side of 67 between Lex and Park could be given to the police. It certainly, it would be worthy and it would clean up the area a little bit.
Yeah. We're definitely reviewing that, Judy.
Okay, and the other thing I just wanted to say, Craig, when you mentioned the York Avenue traffic study, because now they have 2 lanes that they've taken on the ferry. They go from 63 down to almost 61st Street. Okay, at least last Friday, that's how it was. And now I spoke with the hospital, MSK, from 66 to 67. They have 1 lane now. And I think starting next year, they're going to be taking, or at the end of this year, they're going to be taking another lane for truck deliveries next to the lane they've got on going south. So they'll have 2 lanes there. So really to do the study on the 60s until this gets a little bit cleaned up it's not going to prove beneficial. You're not going to get accurate readings.
And that's the
We'll just-
reason. That's
This
the
will be
reason why
this will
we
be
have
the
that.
study that never happens at the rate we're
Well,
going.
I mean, they should study it from 70 to
Well,
96th Street and do the other half of the study
They could do that. They should. I
when
agree.
the work is done. Is that a thought, Colleen?
Go
we,
ahead,
we
Colleen.
can we can take it back to Cole and Greg, but I think your resolution, we got a resolution from the community asking us to hold off on the study.
Correct.
Hold off on the entire study? Maybe we should look at this resolution and pass another resolution asking for them to do, from 70th Street up or from 68th Street up.
Well,
There is no construction.
But Judy, I agree. There's a difference between the project, the ongoing project in the lower 60s. That's by the FDR entrance and exit. That's having severe impacts there. That we think there's an end in sight versus a project that's about to commence where it's going to have impacts, but it's going to last a while. I agree that there are going to be challenges with data collection, but I think it would be a disservice to all of us who have been anxiously awaiting for the study
including us.
Hold,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To hold off on it entirely. There are ways to work around it. If it's going to be a longer term condition, I think the reason we were looking to delay things at the southern end was because we thought that this was days or weeks or a matter of months away as
Not
opposed to
weeks away, but they
years.
do plan. The latest is they plan to finish by the summer or September. So that's not so far away. And if they, then we could pass another resolution or tell Colleen that we're ready now to have them start.
Yeah, it could be a window. Maybe there's a parking lane taken by MSK, but it's not affecting
Okay.
operations and the moving lanes of York Avenue.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to let you know what was going on there. That's all. Okay. Well, then we'll look at this and we'll see if they keep their word. They started this in 2015. It's only been 10 years.
Only 10 years.
I think it was longer than that if you go back to the beginning.
No, they actually started the work, Chuck, in 2015. That's when.
Oh, you're talking about started that work, but I'm
Yeah,
saying,
the York Ave, the sewer and water main work I was referring to.
okay. All right.
I actually have one more update to provide.
Okay, if you must.
Yes, as much as I would like to end this, I promised that we would provide this. So this is in relation to something that Michelle had requested that we look into, and this is in regards to the backpack um um telecommunications equipment on the Bishop's Crook poles that are situated on 86th Street between Lexington and Park Avenues. We had reached out, Will had reached out to OTI, and they gave us the following information. So OTI provided info on their mobile telecommunications franchises, which allow certain equipment to be attached to existing poles, including Bishop's Crook's poles. This franchise allows attachments to existing poles pursuant to their mobile communications franchises. Infrastructure used for this franchise are either city-owned or utility poles, and the purpose of this infrastructure is to enhance cellular service. Their franchisees work with the cellular carriers, such as AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile, to identify areas where coverage is needed. 12 companies have mobile telecommunications franchises with the city, and these companies pay the city fees for use of the poles. There are 349 poles reserved by franchisees within our community district, 215 of which have active equipment attached, and there are all this information is available on NYC Open Data. Notifications to community boards and council members on proposed installations for these franchisees are limited to those that will be 10 feet or closer to a building line. And then in regards to this specific location, the design of the equipment was approved by the PDC in the early 2000s. And notably, a change to the design was proposed to accommodate 5G in 2020, but it was not approved on historic pole types. So that's the information that OTI provided. And I see Michelle has her hand up.
Yeah, so firstly, thank you very, very, very much for that, Craig. That's very helpful. We seem to be finding that there are more and more of this kind of installation all over the city, but without any notice. And I know they sort of gave themselves an out by saying they don't notify anybody if it's not less than 10 feet from a building line. But it was not approved apparently on the Bishop's Crook. And this is also, the 5G towers that are going up that are 32 feet high. The one we voted down, we had a unanimous resolution in opposition to it on 85th and Madison. And then SHPO went ahead and approved it, excuse me. So these are going up without any community oversight. Is there a way that we can write to OTI and to the company? I think it's Links NYC. That's one that has the other towers that has the board on it. And then it's City Bridge that's doing the 5G. And so I wonder who's got the contract for these backpacks. And this was like a 4 backpack thing, which you graciously provided the photograph of. There are others on poles that are like a single backpack. And they keep claiming that they're only putting them in where there's a lack of service, but they have never proved a lack of service. We have no lack of service on 85th and Madison. We have no lack of service on 86th Street between Park and Lex. There are no gaps in service. And they're putting them in. I understand it's a big moneymaker for both the company and the city, but they really are eyesores. And now they're breaching on historic elements. And it seems to me that we should ask them to present to us before they make these decisions. And then this equipment just appears one day. We don't know what it is, and what service it's actually providing. It's an eyesore. And this is a breach of a historic element.
They clearly have been reluctant to come here and talk to us, but we'll see if we can press them and get something more out of them.
Okay. Yeah, they're not happy with the oversight, which I think is very clear. Because for the 5G, for example, the 32 feet high one, those are part of a Section 106 filing with the FCC, which is what the Madison Avenue and 85th Street pole came under because of its invasion on a historic property.
Right.
So, but these are different, but this is an invasion on a historic piece of equipment for which we fought very, very, very hard. We got $1 million contract, $1 million check from Gifford Miller 100 years ago to get all those Bishop's Crook lampposts put in. And that was hard fought. We got it. And now they're being violated like that for something that's not providing a service that anyone needs. And somebody should be held accountable for that.
Follow up and see if there's anything further we can do here.
Okay. Thanks for the report, Craig. I appreciate it. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Or are we ready to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Okay. Without objection, we are adjourned. We thank everyone. And we'll see people at the full board meeting.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.